guys, welcome to the live stream. Got a new setup today, and so I'm going to go through the chat here in just a second, make sure it's working. But in today's video, we're going to talk about roof design and layout. So if you're building a van, the first thing you're probably going to do is start to think about roof racks, solar panels, vent fans, stuff like that. So what we're going to go over in the video today, let's go over here to the pad, and we've got these couple options here. So what I want to do is go through the, let's see here. We've got this layout, and this layout. So what we're going to do is going to have three different ways that you can lay out the roof. And then over here on the right side, the components that you may be wanting to put on the roof. I'm going to go over a couple of things that I suggest you do, and then some things I suggest you don't do, just based on my experience. So if we hop over here to one of the videos on the channel, this is us beginning to work on the roof of Thomas's van. And so you guys can check out this video, it's on the channel. But essentially, we're starting our process of prepping the van. And we're putting our roof rack on. So why I'm starting with the roof rack is, if you haven't already laid out your fans on the top of the van, the first option that you want to look at is what roof rack are you going with? There's a couple different roof racks on the market, and just for the example of this live stream, and to keep things nice and short, I'm going to go and talk about Flatline Van Co. So none of these vendors are affiliated with me in this video, and this is just basically me getting you guys information quickly, get online, and find some options that you guys can go with. So these are just strictly for example purposes. But I like Flatline Van Co. Basically because they're custom fit to each van. They're a low profile roof rack, which makes it really sleek on the outside. Doesn't make it so high when you're going down the road. When you get a roof rack on your van, you may have to say goodbye to drive-through windows, stuff like that. So keep that in mind. So we got our roof racks right here, and the first thing I wanted to point out is, since we're talking about layout options today, focus on these ribs. So these cross members right here. Now, each one of these roof racks, you can adjust these cross members to different positions. So when you're doing that and putting them in different positions, you're able to relocate where the vent fan is. You can put it in the front, in the back. If you did want to use your roof rack for storage, you could do that. However, in my experience, once you get the amount of vent fans you want on the roof, one or two, you want to add some solar up there, those two things are really taking up the space on your roof rack. So thinking about using it as an option for storing items, you're probably not going to have the space to do that. The next thing we want to talk about is how does a roof rack interact with the structure of your van. So the structure of your van is going to be different for every single van. So let's take a look at the Ford Transit. So the Ford Transit has a couple different layouts. You're going to have the low roof, you're going to have the medium roof, and you're going to have the high roof. So you got those three different options, and the amount of ribs in each one of those, depending on the length of the van, so 148 inch, 170 inch. So these are the regular size and then the extended versions. So that's going to give you less or more ribs. I believe in the high roof 148, we've got 4 of these ribs. In between these ribs is where you're going to be able to cut out holes for vent fans, air conditioners, different accessories you want to put on the roof, like lighting, that type of stuff. So as we start to do this, let's go over here to the drawing pad. This is pretty much how these options are coming about. So we're going to draw our van here, or at least try to draw a van roof. So we're looking straight down on a van. And let's draw a 148 high roof van, medium roof. The length, so that 148 that I'm talking about, that is the wheelbase. So let's just say this is the 148. And I think I'm going to erase this guy so you guys can, I can highlight the ribs because they're important. It's pretty much the only thing that's going to keep you from putting stuff that you want on the van. So let's make this light blue. So we have a rib here, and these are the structural members on the top of the van. So I think we got 1, 2 here. There's a big gap, and then we got this one, and then we have one further up here. So if you notice, there's only so many places that you could put something through the roof. Here, 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 and not up here. So we're going to go ahead and make that red. So this part up here, think of this. This is where the driver and passenger seat are. And this is also where the curvature of the van is coming into play. So that curvature, you're not able to do anything. So the first option that you guys have is, and this is just to give you guys a better visual. This will make more sense as we add more photos here. Okay, so we're going to call these two sections right here, these are our vent fans. So we got one here and we got one here. Now if we check out the van behind me, this van, we only have one vent fan in the front. We don't have any vent fan in the back. I'm possibly planning on putting an AC unit on the back of it. And we're actually going to talk about AC units on the roof later in this stream. But the first thing you want to do is, let's go back here. So we're looking at our layout. So the layout that I'm showing right now is, we're going to go with this one right here. That is the one that we did for Thomas's van. So we have our roof, and we've chosen one of the roof racks. So let's go over here. Let's say we chose this Flatline Vanco roof rack right here. So let's superimpose the roof rack on the roof and see how it interacts with where we can locate our vent fans. So let's make our Flatline Vanco roof rack green, and we're going to come in here, and it's just going to hover on the side here, come down, and then it's going to come over on this side. So it comes in 4 pieces, and so you'll have 4 rails. They kind of break right here in the middle, and there's a plate that attaches them. So you got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then up here in the front, you're going to have a fairing. And then you're going to have a couple mounting points. So for example, the blue is our ribs. So you're going to have a mounting point here, 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 and up here. And the roof rack actually goes a little bit over here. And take this with a grain of salt. This is not to scale. This is more for examples for you guys. So we got our mounts for the roof rack. So the roof rack is on the van. And now we're going to put the cross members in. So notice where the blue cross members are of the, so those are the roof ribs of the Ford Transit. Well, where our mounting points are, they're already locations to put crossbars. So they just kind of follow what Ford is doing. Now, if you need to adjust a crossbar, say you wanted to move this one back, you can do that. You can move it back. So we have our van, our 148. We've got our roof rack. And so now we're able to move forward with our roof layout. Now, in this option that I'm giving you guys, I'm not including that you didn't go with a roof rack. It's possible that you don't want to do a roof rack and you want to bolt the solar panels directly to the roof, install the vents, and not use a roof rack. I shy away from that because the more solar panels you add, the more the weight gets, it's pretty heavy on your roof. And the skins of these roofs on Ford Transits are very flimsy and floppy. And it's just very hard to reinforce the structure of a Ford van without actually adding a roof rack as the structure that's going to hold the solar panel. So right here, we're going to go with the next step. So we are talking right now about our vent fan. And then we'll actually go down and talk about the rest of these items. So for this layout, we've got our Flatline Vanco roof rack, or any roof rack that's laid out like this. We're going to add our vent fans. So there's really only 2 or 3 locations where you can put it. This first location, and I'm going to do all this in red, is right here. Because what you're doing is you want the vent fan to have to share some type of structure with the Ford Transit van itself. So this cross member right here, it's going to share a support so that the vent fan doesn't flop down. Because if you put the vent fan here, for example, it would flop up and down because there's no cross member support going through here, if that makes sense. So the rule of thumb is you want to have that vent fan sharing some type of support. The nice thing is, in the back here, you can see we have 2 sides of support. Let me draw that better. We got one over here, we got one over here. And since the distance right here is not that far, we don't really sacrifice the structure. Now, something that I'm not sure if it was designed ahead of time. It's almost too good to be true. But on a Ford Transit, this rear section right here is exactly 14 inches wide. And, well, technically it's like 13 and 3/4 or something like that. You do have to cut a little bit into one of these ribs to get the vent fan to go in. But essentially, you really don't have to do any work if you're going to put a rear vent fan in. You just cut the square out, pop your vent fan in, and you're good to go. When you move to this front area, you may want to support this with some reinforcement bars. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab the reinforcement bars, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So there's a company, let me go to the desktop here. Again, no affiliation, just showing you guys some stuff here. It's a DIY van, and so they make adapter parts, or like adapter rings for Ford Transits, for example. And one thing that they make are these supports. So this is a inside support frame for the van. And so you can see this this customer or person building their van, they didn't want to put the van back here in the back or right here at the front. They wanted it in the middle. And there's a couple different reasons you might want to do that. So let's show you why. So for example, let's look at one of these pictures. So this is the top of Thomas's van as we're working on it. And if you notice, we don't have any obstructions. But say, for example, over here you had an enclosed bathroom, and the fan needed to move up like 3 or 4 inches. So it needed to move past that area, and you'll need to support it. So right here, you'll have these 2 extending bars, and so these will actually go up into the van, and then once they're up in the van, actually they go like this, they'll be glued in, and then you can actually screw the fan into the sides here. So that way, here you go. So those support ribs, they go here, and then what's nice is the roof vent itself can tie into here and then tie into here. So now you actually have 3 points of structure or support. So that is 2 locations, and then you could do a third one here, but you're going to have to you're still going to have to support it some way. All right, so let me back up a little bit. There we go. So let's just say that we have decided that we're going to do, again, we're working on this layout right here, this one. So we're going to do 2 vent fans and then 2 solar panels. So vent fans, all right. So let's check it off. We got our vent fans here. There it is hanging out. And that is where we're going to put them. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to look at our solar layout. So once we have the roof rack, we have our vent fans in place, and we're making sure, make sure I talk about this. So when you're designing the layout of your van, design the floor plan first. That way you'll know if your front vent fan is going to interfere with your bathroom if you guys are doing that, or like a closet, and if your rear vent fan is going to be in a spot where you want it for sleeping or something like that. All right, so we got these 2. Now we're going to add the solar. So let's go ahead and get this red here turned to green, because I'm going to do the solar in red. Now the reason I was talking about that you needed to do a roof rack to hold as much solar as possible is because that is, free energy throughout the day that you can be supplementing your power system with. And so if you're going to do solar, you're going to probably want to do as much as you can on the roof as possible. So when we did, and I'm just using Thomas's van for example, we had 2 locations. So we had, let's see if I can pull up his photo real quick. Nope, we'll go back here. So there's only 2 places to put our 175 watt solar panels. So we had 2 of them. So we did one in the rear. So it was actually offset just a little bit. And so it was like this. And we're just going to follow that line that we did earlier. So that was 1, and this is 175 watts. And then this, for the mid-roof van, there's a fairing that's actually up here. And if you move this cross member forward to right where the fairing is, then you're opening up this space right here. Now it's okay to do this because what we're going to do is we relocated his cross member back to right there. So now this gives us this section right here to put a second 175 watt solar panel. So as I was talking about earlier, you can kind of see we're getting a little busy here. We have we have our vent fan, we've got our solar panel, vent fan, solar panel, front fairing, structural roof rack bar, our second one, our third one, our fourth one, and then we want one here in the back. And there is really no area to store anything. You got the whole thing filled up. So again, if you're trying to store stuff on the roof, you're going to see a theme with these three layouts that I show you. There's not really any room to do that. So we're just going to keep with this example. Let's back up and let's talk about the next thing on the list. Let's talk about the AC unit. So if you're wanting to add an AC unit to this, actually let me back up. Let's talk about, we talked about the layout. Let's talk about solar, the capacity. Oh no, I'm gonna do that in the third one. Okay, we're doing good. We're on track. Back to the AC unit. So we'll go over these extra details here after we go through this. So if we go to the drawing again, we're gonna change this up a little bit. Now, if you are putting an AC unit on your roof, you're probably going to have to get rid of this rear solar panel. Because when you do rooftop AC, it's pretty wide and it's pretty long as far as its shape. You can fit a skinnier panel in here. Let's just call this, we'll just call this one 100 watts. Let's say a 100 watt panel fit there. And then here's where things start to get tricky. So once you change your wattages, so you have 100 watt and you got 175 watt, the current coming out of these is going to be different, and possibly the voltage. And that's where we come into one of these little questions right here. So single or dual solar controllers. So because of your roof layout, if you decide to go with two different size solar panels, each one of these panels is going to have to be in a separate circuit. So it's going to have its own box. And so this would be a solar controller, these two things. So you can kind of see the more complex you do stuff on the roof and the more you move stuff around, other things come into play. And so our capacity, like for example, it changed. So now we have 175, 100. Now you don't have to have solar panels at all, but it really does help. And then that's also our layout. And the question that I wanted to ask, and maybe we'll get some people in the chat here, but the question was, is having an AC system on the roof of your van, is that make or break? If you already have a van, are you comfortable with just having a vent fan, two vent fans, or you've had the vent fans and you wanting to get an AC unit because it's just too hot? So that's one thing I wanted to kind of poll everybody was, is having an AC unit, is that a kind of a make or break for you? And then as we go down, let's talk about awnings. So once we have all of this on the roof, and let's get rid of our little solar controllers down here. So now we're going to add an awning to this roof. So over here on this right-hand side of the van is typically the passenger side. We're going to have an awning. It can be motorized, it can be a manual awning. Doesn't really matter. But what you want to do is, if you are looking to purchase an awning, you're going to want to make sure that, for example, if we go to like Flatline Vanco, just for an example, let's click on this one. So their roof racks, I'm hoping they have a picture of it real quick. So let's zoom in here. So if you guys can see these back holes right here, these middle holes and the foremost holes, this one is pre-drilled to receive the Fiamma F45S awning. So what's nice about that is you already have places kind of pre-drilled out to put that awning on your roof. So the two things about options for roofs are you got a manual and self-supporting. If you can afford it, I would go with the self-supporting, because if you get the manual version, so the F45S is actually a manual version. They make a motor for it, but the motor will extend the awning to about right here, and then you have to pull legs out of it and then continue with the motor and sit it down. So even though you get a motor option, it's not going to it will fully extend it, but it dips pretty aggressively and you need to actually walk out and support it. So if you, my suggestion is if you could go with a self-supporting awning. Dometic makes one that's really good. I would do that. And then lastly on here, we have lighting. So there's all kinds of different lighting options that you can do on a roof. And we're actually going to go back here and we're going to take a look at Thomas's van. So this is a good picture of the lighting on his van. Now this video is more focused on the roof layout, so we're going to talk about that. But for example, this, we'll talk about this awning for real quick since we got a photo. This is the self-supporting awning, and this is a Dometic awning. So it actually has integrated lights. It's self-supporting, so one button actually does make it come all the way out. There's no supports needed. It's got a wind sensor, all that good stuff. And there's a point I'm trying to make when I talk about adding all these accessories that I'll get to in just a minute. But that's his van. And then we're going to go through these photos, and these are lighting accessories. So you have these things on the side. So this is the awning. This is the rear of the van, and this is called a scene light. So it's essentially there to light up the side of your van at nighttime. So we have one on this side. We've got two facing the rear. One of them is actually infrared, which is kind of fancy. Right there. And then we have the same on the other side, but this photo right here, this is another topic for layout. So now that you have your roof rack, you've got your vents cut out, or your AC, let's just call this AC. You have your solar panels, you kind of got everything laid out, and then you've also added, let's say you've added a light up here, back here, and these are just your lights for shining out the side of your van. Maybe you have some side lights. Typically, if you have an awning, you're not going to have a light here. But now, the question becomes, where do all these wires go? So where are you going to wire all this stuff into the van? So what I like to do is I like to pick one location towards the rear and then I'll have another location up closer to here, and that's mainly because most awnings, for some reason, the electrical is on this right-hand side or the forwardmost side. So you've got two options. Now, typically, what people will do on a van build is they'll buy one of these cable gland units, and you'll drill a hole that's about 2 or 3 inches, and then stuff all the wires in there. And I just don't think that's a good idea, because one, if you need to work on one wire, you're basically messing with all the wires to work with one wire. So what I do is I use these cable gland kits. So I'm wondering if I got one right here in the shop. Cable gland kit, where'd you go? The nice thing is you can buy all this stuff on Amazon. So this is the cable gland kit right here. And so you have all kinds of different diameters. So you can have small wires, you can have medium, all the way up to very large wires. And essentially the way that these things work, they're pretty awesome. So you have the gland itself, and what happens is you'll unscrew, so this is the top, so right here, let's start with the bottom first, that'll make more sense. So the bottom has a nut, plastic nut, so it comes off. You have a rubber gasket right here, and so when that comes down on the van, that seals the water out from coming in. And then you have a top piece. So once you put this in the van, I'll draw this on the book, and you squeeze this down and twist it. Now that's pinched, and that's going to make a seal between the sheet metal of the roof. And then right here, you have this rubber gasket, and you got these little fingers. These fingers. And so the rubber gasket goes in here, and then this is where your cable is going to go through. So you put your cable through this first, then you put it through here second, and then you slip this down. And then what this is going to do is it's going to taper all those that rubber gasket, and this is pretty cool. I think you're going to be able to see it on the camera. But as I twist, I don't know if you guys can see that, the more I twist, the tighter that gasket gets. You see? The diameter gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and that allows you to fully seal here and here. Now, this is the coolest part about this. Say I wired something, and for some reason in the van, I'm all done, this is all sealed up, and I say I snipped the wire, and I need to rerun the wire. Well, if I had a whole bunch of wires and I had zipped them, tied them all together, I'd have to undo all that and then pull them all out. With this, I can just go to the one wire, whatever one it is. I can take this, I can loosen it up, I can pull the wire out, fix it, put it back in, and then tighten it back down. And so what it does is it makes it so that you can service these wires. And then around here, we just have some lap sealant at the bottom. And then we'll do the same for these. And what's nice is, 2 can be dedicated to solar. The rest can be dedicated to auxiliary lighting on your van. And so essentially, that's what these blue boxes right here are kind of showing you guys. They're the locations where you want to run the wire. So we got those 2 locations. All right, let's see what other things we wanted to talk about. So we just finished out with talking about locations and options. Let's see if there's any other photos here to just show you guys that maybe I prepared. Yeah, so this one shows you just a little bit more or how detailed these circuits are going to get. They get really heavy the more and more and more you build the van. So not only do we have a line here, which is 2 of the solar panels coming in. So we've got, right here, we've got our solar connectors, which these are branch connectors that are connecting the solar panels. So imagine you have 2 lines and 2 lines from each solar panel, that's 4. So you need to take the 2, make it to 1, and the other 2 to 1. So this is the 2 to 1 connection and the 2 to 1. So the 2 negatives to 1 connection here, 2 positives to 1 connection here. So that's there. And then this one, for example, this is a Baja Designs Squadron Pro light. And we have, so this heat shrink and this cable, so I do all this in-house. So it looks like it was almost purchased this way, and that's kind of the way I like to do the aesthetics, but at the same time, it's done on purpose because we've got a triple seal in here. So inside here, we've got the crimp connection that's heat shrunk. Then we got a protection over the the crimps, and then we have a outer jacket that kind of makes this into one cable. Because this is just going to be in the sun, outside, so plus we want it to, look really neat. And then here we have each one of our inputs on the top of the roof. And if preferable, it's preferable if you look on the top of the roof, you see how this part dips in, and this is high, and this dips in. If you can keep these cable glands on the high part instead of this lower part, that's preferred, because water actually drains through these like gutters. And so if you have these right here, it's not the best, but the reason that we had to do this here is because the ceiling starts right here, that slatted roof ceiling. So I didn't have any room. Okay, so those are those photos. Let's see what else we got. So we talked about locations and options for lighting on top of the roof. The vent fan, manual or motorized, it doesn't really matter, but as far as roof layout, this doesn't affect it, but I was just going to go over that if somebody had a question. So that's pretty much all the things I wanted to go over on the roof, but they all point to this right here, weight. So one reason that I kind of harp on doing a roof rack on the van is because you need something to take up that weight. The van roof just by itself is only designed to carry the outer sheet metal shell. In fact, it's actually not even welded to the top of the van. On the Ford van, it's actually, there's this adhesive that it's glued on. So it's kind of like a shell, and then it's glued on. It might be crimped in some other places, I don't know, but I do know the middle part of the van, if you wanted to, you could cut the 2 sides of the ribs off, and you could just peel it off. And it's like this, there's this foam adhesive that's actually holding the roof on. So there's really little structure there. So if you can tap into the Ford mounting locations, so if we go to this photo right here, and we zoom in, this right here is a bracket from Flatline Van Co. And this bolt right here is bolted into a Ford factory roof rack mounting location. And so this is designed for contractors, people that are carrying ladders, emergency services. Some of these Ford Transit vans are actually made into ambulances. So if we go over here, so these mounts right here, they are designed to take a load. Now this is something pretty crazy. I think the maximum weight per one of these, don't quote me on this, it's been a while since I looked it up, but it's about 75 pounds. So you get about 150, 150, 150, 150. So I'm actually going to look that up real quick. £500. Okay, I was off. 27 pounds. So that's 27. Now we're going to look this up. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 27 times 8. Yeah, I think it was about 70, 75 pounds. But the maximum load that, so this is over here, is on AmericanVan.com. Actually, no, this is Thule. Yeah, 220 pounds. Yeah, it's not a lot. So check this out. 2022 Transit. Got the low roof, the medium roof, and high roof. Low roof is 419 pounds. Medium roof, 331. And high roof, 220 pounds. So if you have 2 solar panels, the roof rack, the vent fans, those are pretty negligible. They're not that heavy. But then the awning is extremely heavy. So if we looked at the, let's see here, Dometic. Self-supporting awning. Let's see if we can find. We're going to go to Panther. Dometic. Doesn't actually give you weight. £108. So I'd say maybe it's a little less, but still, that's half your weight. And then I did want to talk about solar panels really quick. Let's talk about the 175. So this one is 20 pounds. So we got 100, 140. So you can kind of see that the weight adds up. And once you get everything on the roof, you can really feel it when you're driving the van. So that can be something that you take in consideration. So if you're loading everything up, just be aware about the weight. That's something that's really important to just be cognizant about. Now we talked about this one. These other two, this one right here and this one over here, they're pretty self-explanatory. You've got a vent fan, and then you've got 2 panels. And then over here, you've got an AC unit, 1 solar, and then 1 vent. And pretty much this is just kind of like a checklist to go through and think about all the stuff that you're putting in your roof, with the end result being understanding how much weight that you're putting on the roof, and to ensure that it's safe. Now, I would say 90% of the vans out there, I'm pretty sure they have a little over their max roof weight, especially if this is the max. Because the higher you go, which everyone has a high roof, the lower weight capacity. So just something to think about. All right, guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to probably take each one of these topics and break them out into a future video. So we'll have the vent fan as one. We'll go with reviews with some of those for the manual versus motorized. We'll do the solar. Hopefully, in the future, we'll be putting an AC unit in one of the vans, and that way we can go through the 12-volt systems. There's a company that we have here. It is, again, no affiliation, but it's a Pneumatic Cooling, and so they sell a line of AC units that are 12-volt AC units. So they're not the 240-volt AC units or the 120-volt AC units that normal bigger RVs have, where you need shore power to actually run those. They're not able to run off of a battery. Some do. If you have a huge battery bank, high capacity, and you're using an inverter, but that's really one of the most inefficient ways to run an AC unit. You can do it, but it's really going to drain those batteries, and maybe you get one night out of that whole thing. With the 12-volt units, if you have typically about 600 amp hours worth of batteries, you're going to be able to run it for a night or two, depending on your solar and arrangements like that. So that's why I wanted to purchase one of these for one of our spec builds and be able to show you that, or just how efficient it is. The one thing about these is they are very expensive. For example, this one's like $2,400. You still need to buy a $400 power cable. That's $2,800. And then you still need a gasket. Well, they're actually including this, so that's nice. But like, $2,800. And then the mounting kit, so now you're at, $3,100. And then if you wanted to clean it up with this adapter ring kit to make the installation easier, you're at $3,300 without tax. So it is pretty expensive. But again, they're extremely efficient units. These units, again, they run on 12 volts instead of an inverted 12 volts going to 120. So yeah, it'd be great to talk to you guys about that as well. And one of the benefits too is the interior dimension on this 13.9 by 14.4. That's going to allow you to actually fit it on a Ford Transit, for example, right here. So you'd only have to nibble out just a little bit of this right here, and it would fit in between those ribs. And some people do that. All right, guys. Well, yep. Take this checklist with you if you're planning on trying to start the process of laying out your roof. And if you have any questions on individual, vent fan, solar, AC, awning, or lighting, put that in the comments below. Happy to put that into a future video. And this is going to close out the live stream today, and I hope to see you guys next time.